All right, so welcome everyone to our digital session on talent management and artificial intelligence, which is hosted today by Davio from Radix, Serge from Proximus, and David from Autolith Consulting, who will now introduce themselves. Davio, do you want to start?
Can you?
Yes.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My sound was up, sorry. So my name is Davio. I am the CEO at Radix, and I'm going to provide a demo on our solution that we've been developing for Proximus later in the webinar.
I'm David Duchesne. I'm the founder of Autolith Consulting. I'm going to talk about talent management challenges.
And I saw that Serge jumped off. He might have a connection problem.
Yes, so, and anyway, we also have Serge today, who is from Proximus, and he's going to talk about an AI solution that we also developed for them and how they came to using AI at Proximus. But before we begin today, I would just like to give you a bit of a practical information. So during the presentation or also at the debate at the end, you can ask all your questions in the chat and we will make sure that we address all of them. Also, it's best to stay muted throughout the presentation to avoid any disturbances to the sound of our speakers. And also, today we provisioned 1 hour for this webinar, so we will finish on time if you have to go. But however, if the debate keeps on going, we can still stay for additional 10 to 15 minutes. So if you have more time today, that's great. And lastly, you will receive a recording of the session if you want to share it with anybody you know. And today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to start with the challenges of today's talent management with David. Then we're going to talk about why Proximus decided to use AI with Serge. And then Davio is going to show you the career coach demo. It's a solution that we developed for Proximus. And then we're also going to have a debate on what is next for talent management, as well as we will address all of your questions. So let's begin now with the first block, challenges of today's talent management.
In the meantime, sorry to interrupt. I saw that Serge is back, and he is called unknown.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is David Duchesne. Like I said, Autolith is a consultancy house that tries to humanize businesses by adding not only experience but also data on what human behavior drives into strategic decisions. So when we're talking about talent management, and you can go to the next slide, we talk about talent management, talent strategy. We know that strategy is always a matter of behavior. This is the picture that we used to flatten the curve in COVID. We saw that there's a strategy to flatten the curve, but the behavior is not always that what you wanted. And the same goes for HR and talent management. You have a strategy, but people don't always do what you would suspect them to do or expect them to do. And so that's a premise that we use also at Autolith. And you can go to the next slide, and this is the last slide I'm going to talk about, or the one but last. Talent management has been around for ages, and very often talent management has a volume, has a coverage that almost makes it the same as human resources. But the eternal promise of talent management is that you are making sure that people are willing and able to contribute sustainably to create value for all stakeholders. It's a very large definition, but if you look at the core, it's about willingness and ability to contribute. And so central to the idea of talent management is the idea of employability and lifelong learning. That means we want people to have an evolution, to expand their potential or use their potential, and also remain employable, which means maintain or develop the skills that you need in the future. And so talent management has a very big developmental aspect to it. Even if you would talk about talent acquisition or you would talk about pre-retirement, whatever you take the cycle of talent management, it always has a developmental aspect in it, which is important, because if you talk about, for instance, strategy is always about building new capabilities, and talent management, therefore, is one of the most crucial aspects of strategy and HR. And it's always been, and that's the third box, been about data matching and prediction. It means that we wanted to have a fit between people and their jobs, people and their career, people and the organization. And this is what we are trying to do in talent management, and we've been doing that forever. But the only thing is that data was far from being complete. And so we could not use much data, and it's always in HR, if you ask where's the data on people and development, it's always limited in Europe anyway, because we tend not to capture all the data that is necessary to make the matching and the predictions. One thing is also important is that if you ask people to make predictions about their future and their future self, they're not so good at it. Most people are not able to do that. So if you would let people decide about their future, there would be a lot of issues. And we see also that people are not very good in taking decisions about their career, about their future. And that shows also in the figures. If you look at the figures of how many people would like to change jobs, for instance, that's about half of the people. And in Belgium, only 5% does it. In other countries, it's a bit more higher. Denmark is much higher. And I'm talking now pre-COVID. So they're not very good at it. And if you look at the learning figures and the involvement in training, they're not good at it either. If you would ask people how much do you invest in your own training and development in the future, the figures are quite low. There are many people who are not investing in their future, in their employability, in their development. Of course, there are some people that are good at it, and it's usually those that we are focusing on when we're doing talent management, because they're available, they're eager. So we usually have a very exclusive approach to talent management. And the question that we have is, how can we reach the people that are not good at managing their career, investing in their development? And that's a majority of people. And we've done a literature research recently about career development, and there it's clear that mentoring is the key if you want people to take decisions, to make a choice. So you have to mentor them, or they have to look for mentors. But as people don't do that, often organizations provide that, but it's very labor intensive. And there's a lot of questions there. Should we nudge? Should we push people? Should we offer them a choice? Should we just offer them a menu? Should we offer them a career path or not? There's a lot of questions that we have to answer. And so how can we stimulate, support, facilitate people in their choice making? Because careers and talent management is very often about providing choices to people. An example of that is if you have an internal job available, do you post or do you slot? Posting is about making it available to everyone, and so you can have a very equitable decision process. Or do you slot? That means you ask people to go into that job without any, I would say, broad selection. So how can we do that? How should we do that? And the next question, and you see that I'm asking a lot of questions, there are answers to that, but every company, every organization has to give their own answers to that. The question then after should be not just who is responsible. Who is responsible for the career, for the development, for the employability of people? And there's two extremes in there. The extreme of the organization is responsible, therefore the employee is more passive. Or you can say the employee is responsible and then the organization will withdraw. But it's of course something in the middle. Somewhere in the middle, you will say, well, actually, organizations will offer a platform of choice, but it's the individual that has to use that choice, to make the choice, take advantage of the offer, and so on. So it's a joint responsibility. Now, if it's difficult for organizations to steer, stimulate, invite people to invest in their career through training or through career mobility or whatever, what would it be like if we would have all the data of all the people that we have in the organization or even beyond? And that's all the data. It's not only the data that you find on a CV, but it's also the data that is in the head of the people. What do they want? What do they need? How do they see their career? Do they want to work more or less? What about their work-life balance requirements? What about their risk aversion? What about their mobility in terms of geographic mobility and so on and so forth? Imagine that we have all that data, and imagine that we have all the data of jobs, about the job content, the job structure, the context of the job, the culture in which the person has to work, etc., 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 and we can match that. We would have a perfect market without friction, and we would have actually a situation in which people would always know what the best option would be for them if they want to invest in their career. That's scary, perhaps, but this is actually the ultimate aspect of talent management, where you have all the data and where you can propose very tailor-made things to people who will find it very appropriate that you offer them, or you give them information, or you offer them certain opportunities. That's what happens when we have all the data. And that brings us to artificial intelligence, which is not so much about technology as such, but it's more about data. It's about using that data to augment people's capabilities. If we know that people are bad at making choices or investing in their career, or that they're reluctant to do so because of whatever reason, then maybe AI can be used to enhance, augment people's limited capabilities of career decision making because of a lack of information or a lack of motivation or a lack of courage. Maybe we can add data to the equation and help people to overcome those barriers. And that's then the eternal promise of artificial intelligence. The eternal promise of talent management was that we would match your profile to what's existing. And the eternal promise of the artificial intelligence approach would then be that you allow people to make the best possible choice about their development and exploit their individual or maybe even collective capabilities based on the data that is available in order to foster long-term employability, well-being, and productivity. That could be an AI definition of talent management to solve all the challenges and the problems that talent management, with its limited access to data and its limited exploitation of possible data, could do. And that's what I wanted to do as an introduction before we go to the Proximus case and so on and so forth. Talent management is about making the best possible choice. And if you do that, and you can go to the next final slide, if we're able to do that, then talent management will be not so exclusive anymore, focusing on people with potential and who have already attention for their development. But then talent management becomes an inclusive phenomenon or process within an organization or within a labor market, making it available, making information and data available to all parties, offering and demanding of labor or work, and allowing them to make the best possible choice and decision. And that's what my hope would be for AI and talent management. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Serge, now it's your turn to describe how you use AI at Proximus.
You're muted.
In the meantime, while Serge is unmuting himself, were there any other people who had problems logging in? Because apparently I'm getting some messages that people cannot sign in or cannot attend the webinar. Serge is raising his hand. Okay.
He was muted by someone else who has access to the rights.
The link on. Okay. Serge, you cannot unmute yourself? Yeah, you cannot answer. Unknown. Can somebody else unmute? No. You cannot unmute someone else. Oh, Serge is gone. He'll log in again.
Yeah.
It's amazing that after months of lockdown and isolation and doing webinars on all kinds of systems, we're still having the same problems.
Yeah.
Do you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Needed to log in. Sorry, guys, but I needed to use my smartphone to get on board here. So sorry for all the inconvenience. David, was very interesting your introduction. Lots of challenges, and if I look at the challenges you raised and put on the table, these are pretty much the challenges we as Proximus also face. I drilled them down to 3. Need to slice this gigantic elephant, and if I look what first slide, please. Anyhow, yeah, that's the one. Today, if I look at the last 10 years, we had a lot of applications and talent platforms used in Proximus. They had names like Talent Profile, we had MyCV, and today we see that an employee did not give his data to us, mainly because there wasn't any use for them. It's just for the employer. There was no feedback for them. This means that we as an employer Proximus don't really know what the skills are of our employees, if they don't mention it in our talent platforms. And if I look at tools or applications like LinkedIn, I know much more about my employees than I have with my proper tools. And that's something we fundamentally need to change. It's how do you get the knowledge about the skills of your employees, and how do you integrate this in a new talent platform, and why should they give their skills? And like you mentioned, David, you mentioned also in your speech, we notice that's not only the employer who doesn't know what the skills are, but it's also the employee. Lots of employees don't know really what their skills and talents are. So if you ask them, hey, please fill out your talents and skills because I will give you a lovely training or a new job, well, it's difficult to write a CV. It's not so easy. Today, there's a big business around this. We have career coaches, we have outplacement bureaus to try to discover the skills and the talents of employees or future employees. So what I find already interesting, and Davio will show you later, is that when we use a tool like AI, people sometimes discover skills that they didn't know anymore. We had a kind of aha erlebnis every time we confronted people with the skills according to the AI application. Next to having a central register of all skills for people where you build upon, we have an issue with career and internal mobility. Yes, most of our open job positions are filled in with our proper employees. It's a small part that gets externally recruited. Nevertheless, if you look at the process, it's still a process that says, hey, go to an intranet website, you fill in some filters, and then you wait until you receive an email of an open vacancy that maybe matches your skills. It's a pretty old-fashioned way of looking at careers, and not everybody does this. Not everybody does this, and then people get missed career opportunities, even internally, and we don't make proper use of our skills and our talents, talented employees inside of the company. And I posted this picture. Don't know if anybody knows her, but it's Ursula Burns. She is one of the first Afro-American CEOs of a Fortune 500 company. For instance, if you look at some studies, our female employees tend to be more critical with respect to their skills and their capabilities than men are. Men boast and don't have less issues with going to a next career step than women have. So I think to take this away, AI can help. Men have more like what I sometimes call the Pippi Langkous syndrome, if you can call it a syndrome. I haven't done it, so I most probably can do it for those who know who Pippi Langkous is. Women haven't had another mindset, and much more critical, and tend to go for the job where they feel they're fully qualified, even if it's not necessary. The third issue is a bit the lifelong learning thing. Everybody knows, I think, that there are only few people think that learning ends when you leave school. Well, if people want careers till 65, we all know that we will have to learn one way or another. Even if it's getting acquainted with digital tools or whatever. And I see in the market coming up more and more tools that try to stimulate this learning. But a bit of the problem, and also David mentioned this, and we shared the same concern. All these tools are a bit oriented, what I would call, towards the knowledge worker. It proposes expert training for somebody who is already very much experienced in a certain domain, or if you're a team manager or people manager, then you can get some training in leadership. And to be able to do this, you need to go and search for the right training, and so on and so on and so on, or fill out filters. Well, if you look at the way the tools are made and how they are organized, most of these talent tools are really made for knowledge workers. And well, I put in the picture of Fort, the closure of Fort Genk in Limburg. Well, it was a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever. 14% was still unemployed, but of this 14%, 75% of the people were 55 plus. And that's a bit what the problem is with our talent management. If we all need to do lifelong learning, and we see the statistics, then we should more focus towards the non-knowledge workers. But these tools are not really employee friendly to get them on board. So that's something where we look for. Next slide. Crucial, and that's a bit different than focusing on the current talent tools, is that for us, the employee should be more central. At first, or at the start, should be more central. In developing also in the way the tool is addressed. A lot of tools are made for employers and less for employees. This means that you will make this tool driven by AI behind it very easy to access, preferably mobile, 2-3 buttons, not a long list of filtered and training, but very, very, very personalized training. A bit of like today, for the people who look Netflix, you see an evolution in Netflix. First, there were a lot of criteria. Now they even tend to say, hey, these are the 10 films you need to see for reason X, or Z. Well, that should be something like this. Hey, my technician, if you want still a job for in the next 5 years, these are the 5 courses, these are the 5 trainings you need to follow. Or even if you want to have another job, well, these are the 3 jobs, these are 3 trainings you need to follow to get really, really, really knowledgeable for this new job. That's a bit the nudging. The nudging isn't only about personalization, but it's also the way it comes to the employee. If the employee needs to go and search, needs to enter a big building, a university, and try to find the classroom, then knock on the door and hope that he's in the right classroom, it will not work. The classroom needs to go to the employee a little bit. The tool needs to be what I call I didn't call it, it's a term, what's in it for me. That's an abbreviation for me, it's what's in it for me, saying if I give data to this tool, what comes out of it? It needs to be visible. I only give my data when I know that it has some value for me to give it. It's like, why do people fill in their LinkedIn profile? Well, it can get them their next job. It's as simple as that. That's why the people fill this in. This should be the case as well. Our processes should be around this. People learn because there's a trigger to learn. And there are not much people, and certainly not non-knowledge workers, that tend to start learning by themselves for no reason whatsoever, or only a kind of mythical thing like it's our strategy. That doesn't work for people. It needs to be tangible for them. Why should I take this course? What's in it for me? What can I get out of it? That's really, really, really important. And that goes along with the interactive. If you change something in a tool and there's nothing that happens, there's no training data that changes, there are no job opportunities that come out of it, well, then people will not use it. For me, it's not only about AI, it's also how you set up the tool. And it's really the UX, the user experience, that's key to this. Well, these are about the 3 HR challenges and the 4 tool challenges which we gave to Davio and his team. And out of this, they made a kind of solution, which he's going to tell you all about normally, if he's still online.
Yes, I'm still here, Sergio. Thank you. Great introduction. So as Sergio mentioned, he came to us with this challenge, and we had a few workshops and came out with the first solution. Before that, quickly introducing myself and Radix. So Radix is an AI, an artificial intelligence agency, and we help our clients grow by empowering their people with AI. So we invent, design, and develop AI solutions. And particularly here, AI solution to improve the talent management and the challenges that Mark, that Sergio and David just explained. I'm sorry that I said Mark, but it popped up my screen that someone wanted to join. All right, I'm going to take over the screen, Yulia. I'm sorry, but there is some echo. Maybe, I think it's Sergio. Could you mute, please? Or I can mute. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So I'll share my screen. Can someone confirm if you can see it?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So just as a disclaimer, this person is not real. The profile is. We've used, this is Proximus data, let's say, in the sense that the career opportunities, the courses, the profile is someone within Proximus, but of course, for privacy reasons, we changed the name and a few details to make sure it is private. So with the challenges that Serge gave us, knowing who knows what, so knowing what skills someone has, making sure that they can grow within the company by creating a what's in it for me and a frictionless experience, making it a great employee experience. We went to work and we developed this first version of what we call the career coach. So what happens here is that basically anyone's profile can be uploaded through the existing data that is available. So that's the step. That's basically, let's say, step one of creating a frictionless experience. You don't have to fill in a form or whatever. You just connect and you provide us the data that we have, and we upload it automatically within the system. This generates then a skills profile, and of course, if you want to see more details, there's also more details about the profile and the experiences. A second step is that you very easily can add additional skills, ones that the system might not have detected, but that are probably and are likely within your capabilities. So it's easy to add, but it's also easy to go for courses, because this skill is, as I mentioned, close to what you have, but it's not necessarily something that you have. So you can also immediately go to courses that provide you those trainings. I'll go in deeper into that later. So that's the first tile, let's say. Based on this profile, which we upload from existing sources, we immediately create a set of career opportunities. In the second tile, you have 4 which are standardly shown, but if you browse, you can see basically on almost any opportunity internal at Proximus what the match with that position is. In this list of positions, you can see there's an option to provide more details on the match and to rate the suggestion. Why is this relevant? If you rate the suggestion, the system will not only learn about what you're capable of, but will also learn your personal preferences and will evolve in the future towards even more personalized recommendations. If you click on details, you can see why the system provides the suggestion based on the skills that you have and based on what you might, and I'm explicitly saying might miss, because of course this is, and we have to be very clear about that, a prediction. This is not necessarily the truth. We can make a prediction, and based on that prediction, we provide you suggestions. These suggestions can then be altered. So for instance, you could say, change management, I think that I'm pretty skilled at that, and you could add that to your profile. Or if you're not, you could add that to your training list and use that to actually grow towards this role. And if you want to grow towards this role, then the last tile is the most interesting one, which is basically showing you a set of courses to get the job. And this changes, of course, based on the type of role that you would be interested in. The system is then also linked with the internal e-learning system. In this case, it's Cornerstone, but it's also linked with external MOOC providers. Based on that, we provide suggestions linked to the specific skill. This can also, you can also use this just in general to browse, not just for the recommendations, but also to browse the different sources. So this is in a nutshell what it does. And so the idea is, first of all, making sure that the employee experience is great, because I think there are many tools, there have been many tools, but I think a core to that is, a core to making sure that these things succeed is having the adoption, having people use it, and creating that within what's in it for me, the motivation through personalized recommendations and removing any friction. The idea here as well is to inspire people. to see this is what you could do, and you can actually see it even as a game if you want, because this, of course, there's no commitment related to this. You can apply for something. So if you ask for more information, you can apply for this job, but you still have to go through the normal process of an application. This does not guarantee you have the job. This just inspires you and shows what the possibilities are and how you could improve if you are missing certain skills. Then the second thing, employee experience, is the first one. The second thing is providing that clarity on skills. On which skills do you have and on which do you need, which then immediately are linked to courses. The interesting part about the skills as well is that we have this on a personal level, but you could see it in the background and in the system. And for those that are interested, you can always reach out and we can provide more details. But in the background, we basically have a system that has an overview of everyone and what skills they have. So you can imagine like a big Excel, and you have per name, you have a row, and you have indicated which skills this person have. And then you can play around with it. You can create insights of what skills do we have in general, and you can link that to what skills you think are crucial to your company. And that's then a second part on the skills part, is that we can also provide insights on what skills might be necessary for this person and how this could evolve. A nice example, for instance, is that because this system is driven by data from our clients, but also external data, what we've developed is a system, and it's generally and more known as what is called a skills cloud. Is a system that allows to have a framework, let's say, of skills that is constantly up to date. So that's the third part, actually, which is next to the employee experience. The clarity on what skills do you have today and where do you have to go is the fact that it's also sustainable. This tool is being updated frequently with what are the new skills in the market, what are new skills for this person to improve in the current role, but also in the job that she would want to evolve to. And it's not only up to date, but the second nice thing that becomes possible because of that technology is that you can see the skill potential and use that within the backend of the system. So the idea is to keep it simple. That's about the employee experience. We need to keep it simple. What can you do and how do you get there? That's basically the fundamentals of what you want to achieve. But at the back end of the system, the intelligence behind it, there's much more going on. It's taking into account what you can do today. It's taking into account the potential you have, which skills are close to what you're capable of. And even a third layer, what does Proximus, what as an employer would you think is important for this person to grow towards? And combining these things, we then provide career opportunities and ways to grow. So that's our career coach. We have a lot of other ideas to move forward. And I think that's a very interesting next discussion on how AI and in general, the future of talent management will evolve. That was the demo. If there are any questions, you can post them in the chat, of course, or you can ask them in the Q&A at the end.
Yes, so I think now, Serge, maybe you could say a couple of words of what do you think about this AI solution and maybe where it could evolve in the future, indeed, as Davio said?
Well, it's a bit like Davio said, it's a bit how you address the issue to get the most out of it. Today, the concept that's been laid down is really employee-centric. The next steps is, how can you do, for example, strategic workforce planning in there? Because if you're starting to have the knowledge about the skills of your employees and you got your company and your business strategy, then you know where to go to, and then you can do the gap analysis. Well, classically, the things we did in the past with strategic workforce planning and the gap between skills and the future jobs, this we can do easily. We can nudge much more. From an employee point of view, even the trigger how you get a new job on your smartphone can be increased, but less AI driven. AI driven also is how do peers compare? If I talk career steps, a lot of employees search for role examples. And sometimes you see this on LinkedIn, and then you got a CEO of Solvay being a role model for a lot of people. But it can be much more down to earth as well, saying, hey, look, a lot of peers with the same kind of profile did this as a kind of career step. So you got the old discussion of building loopbaancarrières, loopbaanpaden. This you can provide much easier when you have all this kind of data and when you have this AI technology available. These are the kind of things. Also, people learn for a new job because of peers do it, or their bosses. That's studies show you don't start to learn because you learn. So integrating all these kind of features, not only of our company, but because in the end of the ride, even if we are about plus minus 10,000, and that might seem a lot, on a global scale, that's nothing. Also, with respect to future learnings, future technologies, if you look at you let down the AI technology of the future, then you see pop up, for example, training courses, skills popping up in places in the world when it's not even in Belgium. You can much quicker pick this up, put this in of experimental modus, and push your people towards it. So the way towards highly skilled employees and state of the art can be much faster. I think, Davio, you gave an example when our head of talent asked it, that you could discover knowledge about software even before we even knew it. So you can get people trained or not, that's the decision you make, but you're much more aware of new trends and learning as well.
Exactly. I forgot to mention the example, actually, Sergio, thank you. So indeed, so one of the interesting features is that because we collect data not only in Belgium but across the world, we can basically see how the demand and skill supply changes. And one example, the concrete example that Sergio is referring to, is that we saw that in the US, a specific programming language called Kotlin is becoming very popular. And what you can also see in the trends is that typically when a skill becomes popular related to IT in the US, it flies over, let's say, to Europe within a certain period. So in case you are a IT-driven company, it would be interesting to look at how this might affect your company. And if you need to invest in it, is it something you need to hire for? Is it something you need to train for? So these kind of insights could really help you think and be ready for the future.
Thank you, Davia. Actually, we have a question that I think is directed to you. How are skills mapped to specific vacancies or training courses?
That is a great question. Well, that's the magic sauce of AI, let's say. Magic sauce. So the AI component, so there's actually more than one AI model within this system. So there's a combination of multiple ones. The one that you're referring to is basically a system that extracts from a certain a piece of information, unstructured piece of information, which could be a written vacancy, which is the description of a training, or the text, the transcription of a training, whatever. And we've developed an AI model that can extract which skills are being addressed or being asked here. So that's basically how it works. And then you can, once you have that, those extracted skills are actually turned into numbers. And once you have those in numbers, then you can make comparisons and relations between them. And then you can combine those from vacancies with courses and the gaps between them. Is that clear, Tom? If you have questions, if it's not clear, don't hesitate to. Julia, do you want me to go over the different questions, or do we first want to have another discussion? So
I would say that we can start with the debate now. So yes, everyone, if you have any questions, please indicate them in the chat and let's discuss them now. So actually there is another question on how do you define the skills into areas like technical skills, leadership skills, and more company-related skills, and then the job market-related skills?
Can I first ask a question? Because how do you see the difference between, let's say, technical skills and job market-related skills? What does it mean?
It's Vincent speaking. So for me, technical related skills are related to the job within the company. If you are looking, let's say, to the job market, it's really, let's say, some general skills that are available, let's say, within the external job market, not the internal one. So for example, to make a concrete example, if you would be looking, let's say, to a customer relationship manager within our company, it could be that we have, let's say, 1-2 extra skills that are required. If you're looking to job market related skills, it could be that it's more, let's say, 1 or 2 skills that are coming out much more broader. And then on top of you have the company related skills that we've defined, and in some cases, depending from the hierarchy, also 1, 2, or 3 leadership skills.
Yes. I think I understand your question. I'll create an answer, and don't hesitate to tell me if I understood it, if I didn't understand it correctly. So what I understood is that, for instance, we extract skills from a job description from someone within your company. That information has metadata, let's say, which is then saying that this is from specifically your company. Those that are job market related, they are extracted from a different source. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Or is it to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So in that sense, the skills have actually that metadata, so we know where they are originating from. But that is, of course, something different between, like, let's say, company related and job market, because company related, if we take the example of Proximus, the company related ones are the ones extracted from their internal job descriptions and their internal job vacancies. So that's where we extract them, that's internal. And then external ones have a different source, which is easy for us to, let's split up. Then for the other question, because I think there's probably 2 questions. There's a difference then between, let's say, technical skills and leadership skills. It's also a bit a tricky question in the sense we can make a difference between the type of skills. So we have categories within those skills because the technology allows us to cluster certain sets of skills and then understand how they relate to each other. And then you see skills that are more within the space of leadership, and those that are the core hard skills, let's say. But then there's also the part of more soft skills, and that is something which is much more difficult in our experience. The reason is simple. You can put in your CV what you everybody's motivated in their CV, let's say, which is something very it's something very tricky to establish. So it is possible if someone mentions it, but I think those things are more subjective than just mentioning I'm good at programming or at Python, for instance. So it's not, it's very important that this technology, it's supporting, but it's not dictating what is the truth.
Thank you, Davy. Divyo, that's clear.
You're welcome.
There's another question from Terence. Have anyone known of any positions dealing with AI ethics and governance? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Terence.
Have anyone known of any positions dealing with AI? Is the question if we have experience with that? Yes. So the simplest question is that we have actually implemented a form of fairness within this tool. There's difficult, so for instance, if you refer to AI ethics and governance, my immediate reaction is the relation with bias and fairness, because that's one of the most important parts of ethics. There are several other ones, but if we look at bias, one is you have the ability to implement something which is related to fairness, and that is actually a great opportunity within AI systems, because how do you implement fairness within recruiters or within talent managers? I think you can try to do that, but behavior and changing those things and unconscious bias is very hard to deal with. And an AI system actually quantifies things, which makes it easier to deal with it. I'm not saying that it will be perfect, but it makes it easy to deal with it. And we've implemented a form of fairness, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the correct term is equalized odds. But for those that are interested in more details, you can actually go to our blog, because we have, and Julia just shared it, a whole post on how fairness could be implemented and how you can deal with it. Is that an answer to your question, Terence? Let's move on.
All right. Does anybody have any more questions?
I have one actually then for David, if I may. How do you see this evolving? Because you're a fan of it, but you're also very realistic towards these things.
Well, I don't want to sound old. I'm a fan of it because it allows. I think it can even allow more fairness than what we did before. So that's the promise. I would say that is there. Of course, every solution, every tool is as good as how it's used, and so AI is only a tool in the hands of those who make the strategy and the policies. We will never ever capture everything with it. That's I'm sure. Even the tool itself only covers a part of what learning is. In learning is informal, is social, is personal, and training is only one aspect of how people can learn. So I guess we'll never be able. Maybe I shouldn't say never if Davio is around, but we'll never capture everything. But I think we should use AI tools on those spots where it hurts today. And if you have so many people like in Proximus that you want to reach and want to stimulate with your input, then an AI tool can definitely be a support in there, and the more the tools will learn, the better they will become, and that's also the promise. And I am not sure how people respond if the AI becomes a bit more sophisticated, and imagine that you could do a mentoring conversation with a bot. Not sure if I would like that, but I'm not sure how people will interact with the technology that is at hand. But let's not run too fast. It's a tool. It's going to grow. It has potential to open up opportunities for everybody. It's going to be a facilitator, and therefore I have high hopes for tools like that.
All right, great. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. And also we have one question about our platform. Actually, how easy is the implementation and how much time does it take?
To be very frank, the difficult part is not necessarily the technical part. So it's relatively easy. It is a scope of a few weeks to have the application running. The challenge, however, is how far do you want to integrate? For instance, at Proximus today, we are working with a more or less light integration, I would say. There are a lot of different ways to integrate, and depending on how far and which systems you want to integrate, it could take some more time. I don't know, maybe if Sergio wants to add anything to that, what the experience is so far. Or on your view on the future. You're muted.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think I can't unmute you, Sergio. I'm sorry. All right. In the meantime, while Sergio is trying to unmute himself, are there any other questions?
In any case, if any questions arise afterwards, you can always contact Davio, David, or Sergio. I've just attached the email addresses of everyone.
Sergio's here.
Yeah, great.
I don't have much to add. For me, it's not about AI only. So it's also about how do you look at talent management? So how do you make the tool work? That was from an employee journey, employee experience point of view important. So it's how you set it up. And of course, the complexity in technology often comes when you need to integrate tools. For those who are involved in big technology projects, it's often not the application that's the problem, but it's the integration with other tools. And there's no technology that stands by itself, because otherwise it wouldn't make use of all the data, and then it's useless again. So I pretty much agree with Davio. As such, it can be easy. For me, it's just a bit in line with what David said, a small step. We're not here to solve all the talent management thing, saying, and sometimes I hear this, getting the recruiter out or even the career coaches or somewhat. AI helps you to get more data available at the right moment, at the right time, to make better decisions. And that goes for the employer, and in this case, the start also for the employee. I want to say. Voilà.
That's a great finish, I would say.
We still have one question though about the implementation, because we described it as simple, but what are the most suitable data sources to run a platform like this?
Today, we are integrating with the human capital management system, and which there's different sources, but today there's only one integration. In this case, it's with Cornerstone at Proximus. I don't know if, I guess I can share that, Sergio. I'm sorry.
Well, it's not really. There's not even really an integration. It's just sharing of data. I would even. Sometimes you don't even develop something. Certainly not when you're at this stage. But it's true. It's with our human capital, our data, mixing data coming from different sources, like LinkedIn, like wherever you fetch the data, which is the global data and the millions of data. Okay.
All right. So for those that want to have a discussion with me, David, or Sergio, you can stay. For the others, if there are no more questions, can wrap up.
Yes,
thank you,
everyone. And again, if you have questions or you would like to sign up for a more extensive demo of Career Coach or for a one-on-one consultation with Radix, you can always contact Davio personally. Thanks.